Hello and welcome to another episode of Taking Notes with Ken. I'm your host, Ken Sheehan. Today's guest is my wonderful friend, Arni Zachariassen from the beautiful country of the Faroe Islands. Arni, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you, man. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, so you and I have been friends for what seems like forever now. It goes way back to, let's see, that would have been 2005.
I think so, yeah.
So coming up on 20, no, not 20,
Well,
17 years or so. Coming up
Yeah.
on 17 years, yeah. What started out as a friendship online, you were at the time guitar player in a band called Bracket, Braquet, not to be confused with the punk band Bracket, spelled
Exactly.
Bracket.
Yeah, we found them online, so we had to change the spelling, but yeah.
Yeah. So now you come from the country of the Faroe Islands.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. It's I know that it's basically what would you call it? It's part of Denmark, but it's still its own.
Yeah,
thing.
it's like a
Explain that.
self-governing part of Denmark. It's quite similar to, so if you imagine, there are a lot of colonial regions around the world, well, I mean, the States were at one point,
Yeah.
but
At one point,
but the Danes weren't as harsh as the British or French or Belgian. I don't know, and we were kind of left alone up here. Originally, the Faroes were settled by, as far as we know, by Irish monks, maybe. Monks that I don't know, didn't like all the people in Ireland, so they set out to find somewhere where there was no one, and some of them came here. But then people arrived. The Vikings arrived a couple of maybe a century or two later. So that's 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago, and they stayed. The story is that they just wanted to be left alone. I mean, they were in Norway primarily, at least that's what the sagas say, and they didn't want to pay tax to anyone, didn't want any king to rule over them, so they set out to find somewhere where they could be just left alone, and they came here and just stayed. That's sort of genetically or ethnically, I don't know what the right word is. So the Faroes are, as you say, politically we're part of Denmark. Technically, it's not very similar to Denmark in pretty much any way. I think culturally it's mostly similar to Iceland. I think that's, the language is quite, we have our own language. It's quite similar to Icelandic, but it's these really small islands. It's very easy not to see it on the map. It looks like a smudge almost.
Yeah.
Pretty
Like
much.
I always, whenever I'm talking to somebody about it, I always explain it's like a little tiny dot in the middle of the ocean between Iceland, Norway, and the UK.
Yeah, pretty much. That's
just,
where we are.
You know, and you're the closest island country is what, the Shetland Islands, I believe.
Yeah. It's quite similar, actually. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
It's been a while since I was in Shetland. I don't think the mountains are quite as it's not quite as sort of rugged and barren as up here. I think it's a bit more flat.
Yeah.
But it's very similar. Even some of the place names, coming from the Viking times are the same in Shetland and here. There are about 56,000 people here that live on the Faroe Islands. Obviously, there are Faroese people spread all over the place. Mostly, in Denmark that's where a lot of Faroese people live. But we aren't many.
And it's funny when I think about that, because the city I live in Nashville, has a population more than your whole country.
Yeah, I know. When I studied in the UK, when I went to Manchester University, the whole student and staff body was 50,000. Just one school, right? Thought that was funny.
So now with Faroese, with the language, it's also Faroese. Obviously you speak fluent English. Is that very common in the Faroes for everyone there to speak fluent English?
Well, I mean, it depends on the generation, I think, but all young people know English. I was I think if you go maybe over 50, people will not be quite as comfortable speaking English, maybe not fluently, but they'll understand what you're trying to say. But I mean, when you live in when your language is spoken by maybe 75,000 people tops in the world, or well, in the universe, you have to know other languages. So Danish is the second language, and everyone in the Faroes knows Danish. We get taught in school, and then English would be the third language, and but also things like we it's such a small place. Most of our films are not Faroese. There's a lot of music. We can talk about that, but yeah, most of the sort of the culture, the media that we consume will be in another language. So it's something you train all the time as a result.
Yeah, and as I've talked about on past episodes, I had my first guest was from Norway. I had 2 guests from Denmark. So I'm fascinated by languages, and I try and learn something in every country. So in Danish, jeg taler lidt dansk. So I speak a little Danish, but I can't even begin to try and speak Faroese. You've tried to help me learn.
I've tried my best, Ken, but it didn't work.
It did not work. It's funny too, like Faroese is a language that's not available for translation online. So whenever you post something on Facebook in Faroese, there's no translation button to see what it was, and there's no Google Translate option for Faroese either.
Exactly.
So it's kind of cool. You guys are kind of like, you have your own secret language that nobody else can really
that's true.
decipher if you
Mark Zuckerberg can't, he doesn't know what's going on here.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think
you talk about
it's a good thing, and it becomes a better and better thing, I think.
Yeah. And you mentioned before about when the Faroes were first settled, it was just the Irish monks wanted to just be left alone and be in an isolated place. And even now, after all these years, centuries later, you guys are still not very known in the world, and so it's kind of like a little hidden secret, if you will. I had the opportunity to go there, and I visited you when it was at 2019.
Or maybe 18. No, I don't remember. But
it was 19. Yeah.
Okay.
19.
Okay.
I was on tour with Bon Jovi at the time in Europe, and we had a break from the tour, and I went to Copenhagen for a few days, and then I went over to the Faroes, and I got to tell you, it was definitely a bucket list thing for me, dream come true, because ever since I met you 17 years ago, I've been wanting to go to the Faroes. You've just been talking about it ever since, and it's just had this image in my mind of what a wonderful place it was, and it did not disappoint. And it was, for me, it was so surreal to, like, when I landed at the airport, as I'm flying into Tórshavn, where the one airport in the whole country is located, in the capital city, it was just, seeing the different islands that are spread out, and I believe there's 18 islands that comprise the whole country. Yeah, and I was just like, oh my God, this is really happening. I'm about to be in the Faroe Islands. It was surreal for me. And then you picked me up at the airport, and we drove around for a little bit, and it just didn't feel real to me. And one of the cool things is we went to your house, and basically you go out your back door, and your view is this mountain in your backyard, basically, with
pretty much
with sheep wandering around and little like Shetland ponies, and it's just such a beautiful place, so far removed from what we in America have as far as I don't know, scenery or whatever you want to call it, but I think it's a really cool place to live in and for kids to grow up in, and like I said, you are a little bit sheltered from the rest of the world, but that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. But
definitely.
So, but anyway, I fell in love with the Faroes. It was amazing for me, and we definitely, me and Lena, my wife, need to go over there together so I can show her, this beautiful place. And
definitely.
But anyway, let's. We'll get there someday, both of us. And she was quite jealous of me being there, and I think you had mentioned to me before, it was pretty much everybody, not everybody, but it's not common to go out and just, everybody. And in a sense, you're never going to go out and not see somebody because
Yeah,
it's such
pretty
a
much.
small country and because
Yeah.
everyone's so tight-knit. I remember when you and I were there, we went to eat in the one mall in the whole country.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
They had
The
a
one
food court that
Burger
had
King, yeah.
two restaurant options.
Yes.
One was Burger King, and the other one was some other place. And
Yeah.
we were eating there, and who walks over but Andreas Højgaard, the singer for the band that you were in
Yeah,
back
that
in
was
the day,
a
Bracket. That
weird
was just so
coincidence.
random.
Yeah.
I thought that he knew we were going to be there, but it was just he was randomly there, and so it was cool to see him.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the band Bracket and how we kind of, connected and became friends. So I was working on a festival, putting together a festival in 1995 that had some difficulties and ended up not happening. But through that, you on the other side of the world in tiny little country of the Faroe Islands, you heard about my festival and you reached out to me and you asked if I would book Bracket to play at the festival. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just said 1995. That's I was in 5th grade in 95.
2005.
2005.
I knew
10
that
years
sounded
out.
wrong.
Yeah, there was something wrong with that.
2005.
Yeah, but exactly. So we had been a band for a couple of years then. We played here, and I think we were in a good period. We had sort of found our sort of identity musically. And we'd gone into the studio to record 4 or 5 songs for an EP, and I thought, okay, we better, let's go play somewhere. And you talk about wanting to come to the Faroes, but everyone in the world wants to go to the US. I mean, to play there, that'd be the sort of a dream come through. A bucket list thing for me as well. So I just wrote to tons of things. Hey, can we play there? Not really thinking it through. We'll just figure something out. Why not? Being quite a bit younger than I am now. But yeah, I think and we could talk about this, but I think the reason why we hit it off as well as we did wasn't that we didn't play the festival, but I think you were booking like classic Christian metal bands, which is the music that I grew up listening to, and you were sort of in the middle of the early sort of late 80s, early 90s metal, Christian metal scene. All the Intense record artists and all that, which were all the artists that I grew up listening to, and I think that's something that we sort of really connected over. And
exactly, I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, and it wasn't that I was booking them. I was actually, it different things with different bands. I was anything from a guitar tech to tour manager to stage manager, or all of the above at the same time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I sometimes I look back on that and I think, oh, it wasn't a big deal. But then I hear from people like you, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess it kind of was a big deal. It was at the time, it was just something I did. I didn't realize how widespread and how far-reaching these bands were. With getting their music to the rest of the world. To me, it always just seemed like a local thing. But they had far-reaching audience everywhere. So anyway, yeah. So you wanted to play the festival. I didn't want to book you because I couldn't afford to fly you guys from the Faroe Islands. But through that, we became friends online and we stayed in touch. And you sent me, you had a link to your music was on some site online that I was able to listen to.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with the music. I was like, oh my gosh, this tiny little country in the middle of nowhere has this amazing band. Everybody needs to know about this band. So we started talking. I think one day you just kind of randomly asked me if I would manage you guys, and I had a little bit of experience in the past managing some local bands, and I wanted to keep doing that, so I naturally jumped on the opportunity to do that. And so my first task, I guess, was to try and get you guys over here to tour the U.S. Which, as you mentioned, was a dream of everyone in the band, and most people outside of the U.S. want to come and perform here. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I started working on that and started putting a little tour together. And at the time, I was living in Michigan, in the States,
Ann Arbor,
and so I started. I booked the whole tour starting from Michigan, and there's a festival. It was pretty popular at the time called Cornerstone Festival, which is held in Bushnell, Illinois, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of cornfields. But it was one of the biggest festivals, and so I entered you guys in the new band showcase, and I believe it was a competition type thing, and you guys earned a spot in the showcase to perform at the festival, and I believe it was the top 16 bands got to perform, and I don't remember where you guys fell in that lineup, but the important thing was you guys made it into the top 16 and you got to perform.
We weren't number one. I remember that, but
yeah, and so you guys flew into Detroit. And where I met you at the airport, and I was nervous. You know, you guys were probably nervous. You know, your first time, you had to go through customs and everything.
Yeah, that was that's a place where the language became really handy, because we hadn't. I mean, we didn't have any work visas or anything. Like, we were sort of pretending to go on vacation to play some gigs, but we didn't disclose that we were going to play gigs and probably make. I mean, we didn't make any money. We didn't become rich in any sense, but we were getting paid for some of those gigs, and we're selling CDs and all that sort of stuff. So, and we hadn't really gotten our story straight. And I remember I was the first person to go to the, the booth, and this really, like, grumpy, big guy sitting there asked me about, so what are you going to do? Where are you going first? What are you doing then? And I just had to make some stuff up on the spot. Like, we're meeting our friend here. We're heading to LA to meet his family. Not exactly lies, but then I could shout it back to the other guy, saying, in Faroese, well, this is what I said. Please, corroborate this story. So we did get through. But I remember there was a sort of awkward moment where they opened my suitcase, which was full of guitar pedals and cables. No. And what are you going to do with this? And I said, well, I mean, I want to buy an amp, so I need to try it out really properly. And they fell for it. A good start for a sort of a Christian rock band tour of the States. Just all lies.
And in hindsight, I would never do it that way. I mean, I was just taking a huge risk by not getting the proper visas and everything. We just took the risk and decided we're going to try it, and it worked. You did, knowing what I know now, I would never do that again. But and I've worked with other bands where we had to go through a lengthy visa process. I used to manage a band in Canada, and that was quite the ordeal to get them just to come to the U.S. and do one show was a really big ordeal just to get their visas in line. So. Anyway, so one thing I want to mention is it's kind of interesting is before we started the tour, we were in a 15-passenger van, and we all got together outside the van to take a picture in front of the van. And when I had the opportunity to go to the Faroes in 2019, we recreated that picture. Yeah, all of us standing in the same exact positions, and I published them on Facebook, side-by-side pictures, and that was really cool. It was then and now. 13-year gap, and it's a cool picture. I'm going to post it, and I'll either have it here in the episode. I'll put it right here, maybe. There we go. There it is.
A lot of gray hairs. In the meantime, but yeah, maybe a couple of pounds as well added.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, we did the tour, and as you mentioned, there wasn't a whole lot of money that was made, and and of course, me being a manager and the person that booked the whole tour, of course, I was beating myself up about it, and oh man, I really wish this was more successful, and that everyone was making money and going home with money in their pocket. But unbeknownst to me, you guys were having a great time, and you viewed it as, like this is a vacation, and we're basically doing concerts while we're on vacation,
Yeah, exactly.
I had a band from... Yeah. I also had a band from Denmark. The singer was on one of our previous episodes, and they kind of viewed it the same way. I brought them to the U.S. the band that was following your tour and wanted me to book them. I ended up booking them right after you guys, and they viewed it the same way. It was a working vacation. You know, they got to tour the U.S. and do some shows every now and then.
But I mean, you know, we weren't on any label. We were sort of self-releasing the record or the EP. We weren't opening for any established band. We were just, you know, booking our own tour, driving around, playing to, you know, sometimes just like maybe 5 people and a bartender or something like that. And but it's, in some places more than that. And some of the gigs were really good, and some of them were fine. But I think, you know, just going to the States like that, you can't expect too much. I mean, not
True.
with the thousands and thousands of other bands that are doing exactly the same thing as you. Like there are,
Right.
you know, there's like that what do you call it, the Pareto distribution, where 20% of bands earn 80% of the money. You know, stuff like that. That's just how it works. That means that 80% of the bands don't really, you know, have to fight over the 20% that's left.
Exactly.
And I don't know if when you say that unbeknownst to you we were having a really good time, maybe I don't remember it as well. I mean, there were moments that were stressful, especially in terms of finance.
for
you know,
sure.
who's going to pay for
For
gas
sure.
now, and
Exactly.
you
I
know,
remember
that sort of
yeah.
stuff, right? Some conflicts. That's just natural. But I don't remember us not having a good time. But it might also just how you remember stuff and how memories develop over a 15-year period.
That's true.
That maybe I look back on it, you know, through not rose-colored glasses, but you know what I mean. Like you forget the bad stuff, or you sort of
Exactly.
It's fine. I mean, we had a really really great time. Did something that most people don't do. Like I couldn't, you know, that's on my bucket list. I've been in a band. We toured the States. I know a lot of bands that haven't done that. And we did lots of fun stuff when we did it. You know,
That's true.
we slept outside. We smuggled beer, and you remember that when we were pulled over by Officer Bacon?
I totally remember that. We were in Texas. We were on our way to a show in Texas.
Yeah.
And we somehow, this was back before cell phones and you know, apps that give you directions and everything. So we had a big map book, and somehow we got routed onto some like side country road that wasn't the main highway, and we kept going through these small towns. So I was driving, and it was like the speed limit would go from like 80, then down to 70, and then you'd hit a town, and it's like all of a sudden it's 40 miles per hour, and then you'd go through the town like one stoplight, and then the speed limit would go back up again. And so I was constantly having to keep on top of how fast I was going, and eventually I got pulled over, and it was a cop, and it took every fiber of my being not to laugh when I saw his name tag.
Yeah.
His name was no joke, Officer Bacon, and I'll never forget that. He let us off with the warning. You know, we played dumb, like, "Oh, we're not from here." You know, I think he might have asked, "Y'all ain't from around here, are you?"
Exactly.
No, sir, we're not.
You know, there was stuff like that was just fun. I mean, where and we played a gig in Las Vegas, right next to the famous sign. You know, just details like that I still remember. We stayed at your mom's house, you know, such a lovely lady. And I mean, it was just, I remember, I look back on it very, very fondly. It was a really, really great time.
The same, I do too. And you can't forget camping in the ghetto in the middle of Memphis.
Exactly. Just a random camping site in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember us going to a store, and it felt a little bit weird. Like we didn't really, we were too white to be there. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but it was cool.
So what was that like for the people back home in the Faroes? Like, was it a big deal to them? Like, hey, one of our own, you know, this band from the Faroes are going to the States, and did they make a big deal about it? Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah, I think so. You know, I think we were updating our MySpace at the time, you know, with, MySpace, what we are doing, you know, where we're playing now, posting photos that we imported from our digital camera, but how we did it in the olden days.
Yeah.
And I think people, in the Faroes, we were never the biggest band here. There were bands that were much bigger than us, but we were moderately well known. We played on TV a couple of times, but I think a lot of people were keeping up with us, being happy with us about the tour.
Yeah. You mentioned not being the most famous band in the Faroes. One of my favorite bands is from the Faroes as well. I think you and I have talked about this before.
Yes.
The band Tuya.
Yeah.
They're I guess you'd call them a Viking metal band. Have a lot of Viking themes in their music, and I like them a lot. They're really, really good. So
I don't know if I told you this, but I did a radio show with their singer a couple of years ago. Maybe like
Harry?
Harry, like 4 or 5 years ago. We did like a sort of a panel show where people would send in questions. So I was the Christian guy, he was the atheist guy, and then there was a woman sort of in the middle, kind of Christian, but very left leaning, It's an interesting sort of panel show. But yeah, he's a great guy, smart guy.
Yeah, I asked him to be on this podcast before I actually started recording it, and he said, I would totally do it as long as you have a bunch of followers. I don't want to be on a podcast where there's like 5 people listening or something like that. So if you're listening to this, make sure you like and subscribe and tell all your friends to do the same, so that we can get Harry from Tuya. I'm saying it wrong. Tuya.
In Faroese, it's Tuir. Yeah.
Tuya. Tyr is how you spell that. But yeah. Anyway, love to have him as a guest on the show, because there's a lot of things to talk about, and there's a lot of let's just say there's a lot of drama surrounding that band with the whole Sea Shepherd thing and all that.
Exactly.
So speaking of Sea Shepherd, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick, and we won't spend too much time on this, but it was an interesting thing about the Faroes is you guys are still involved in whale hunting.
Yeah.
And I don't bring this up to bring up drama or to paint you or the country in a bad light. It's just a fact that you guys are involved in that. And so a lot of people outside of the Faroes, they don't understand what it's all about. And so just explain, the Faroese still, I wouldn't say you guys hunt whales.
No,
because you don't
I was
go
just
out into the
thinking
sea
of
and
that
hunt them.
word.
It's just
Yeah,
that's the wrong word to use. Basically, the way it works is if a whale comes inland, not inland, but like into the harbor or start to swim into shallower waters, somebody will spot it. All the boats will go out and surround it and force it closer to the shore. Where
and
usually it's a whole pod of whales.
Yes, I was just going to say, yeah. So that's exactly right. I think when you say whale hunting, people think of maybe Moby Dick, or maybe they've seen some like Japanese. I don't know, like The Cove. That was a film a couple of years ago, right? I haven't seen it, so I don't know how it compares to what we do. But I think people get this image of we go out and we just hunt whales until they go extinct. It's not like that. First of all, I think the extinction question is really important. We're talking about the pilot whale, and then there's a kind of dolphin. I don't remember the name exactly, which is hunted a little bit as well. But we're usually talking about the pilot whale, which is not endangered in any way. I mean, not even close. And as you say, when they do come close to land, when they're spotted, oftentimes people go out and drive them onto a beach nearby, and those beaches have to be approved. It's not just anywhere; they have to be approved by the authorities according to some criteria. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's something about, there's enough room so it can go, smoothly. And then they're killed and all that, and we eat them. There's no commercial element, which is I think is important. So there's no industry in it. It's not like there's a financial incentive to kill as many as we can. So you can't buy it. There's been some controversy on social media where people have tried to sell, like they call it something else, but everyone knows it's pilot whale, and people freak out about that because they think it's really important that there's it's freely distributed in the community. But I understand why it's controversial. I think first and foremost is because it looks horrible, horrifying. It looks super brutal.
Does, yeah.
But I mean, any killing of any animal is brutal. Produces blood. Yeah. Animals sort of writhing around in pain and so on. The only difference between what we do and what every other nation does is that we don't hide it away. I mean, it's a hunt sort of in the wild. It's outside. You can fly your drone over it if you want to. You can take out your phone and record it. People do that. People who don't like it. People who do like it as well. But I mean, whereas in other countries, as far as I know, I mean, there are even laws against videotaping inside of abattoirs and slaughterhouses and so on. So I don't see a difference between when it comes down to it. I don't see a difference between killing a whale and killing a cow or a bull or a pig or something like that.
Yeah.
And also, if you think about it, I mean, a lot of the food that we eat, I know that obviously you're vegan, so it doesn't apply to you, but if you eat meat, as most people do, then it's industrial. I mean, these animals have been kept inside in cages in the worst cases. They've been pumped full of all sorts of medications, hormones and all sorts of stuff. I mean, they've been treated horribly, and then they're killed. At least the whales have been free. The amount of suffering that goes into a plate of whale meat, I think it's. I mean, if you want to differentiate, I think it's a lot less than, like a chicken curry or a steak dinner or something like that.
Right.
I think those arguments are important. Obviously, if you think it's all killing of animals is illegitimate, then that I can respect. I understand that, but that's not.
And you and I have had lots of talk. You and I have talked about it a lot. And you know where I stand being a vegan, but I'm not and my vegan friends will probably crucify me for saying this. I'm not the militant type vegan where I'm gonna chastise you for doing that or cancel you as everyone's doing these days. People want to cancel people from the Faroes. So I'm definitely, open to discussing it, which is why I brought it up in the first place. But, I obviously stand on, I think all animals should be free to live their lives without us killing them, because there's so many other things on this planet we can eat without eating animals. So that being true. Said, what you said though, there is it, and I hate using this word because I don't think any sort of animal killing is humane. You can call it humane in the methods, but I actually, sorry, it's snowing outside, so I got distracted there. I was actually, one actually happened while I was there visiting you, which and it was interesting for me. I was actually with your mom. We were on our way to Tórshavn, the capital city, to take your son to one of his doctor's appointments at the hospital. And we pulled up, and there was just people running all over and walking all over. Your mom couldn't find a parking spot anywhere, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?" And she's like, say the word. I'm always going to say it wrong. How do you say it?
Grindadrop.
Yeah, Grindadrop. I'm saying it with a
Norwegian pretty close,
which is probably wrong. Yeah. And so that's what an actual thing is called when that happens. And so that was happening, and your mom was trying to explain to me. And it just so happened it was happening right next to the hospital on the beach that was like adjacent to the hospital. So she let me out of the car while she was looking for parking, and I got out. And I wanted to witness it, even though I'm vegan, it was gruesome to me. Very, very, one of the most gruesome things I've ever witnessed. But I don't know, like inside it was important for me to witness it and just to kind of like to, I don't know, this might sound corny, but for me to bear witness to the suffering of these animals. And so I did. I videotaped a lot of it. I took pictures and and I haven't really shared them. I'll never post them online or anything like that because they're very gruesome, and I don't think many people are ready to see something like that. But the one thing I did want to point out is you mentioned, they can only be taken onto certain beaches that are approved, and there's all sorts of laws and rules that surround this whole thing with the killing of whales. And the one thing I did learn and discover is that it's not just like anybody can't just run out into the water and just start stabbing the whale and killing the whale. No. It's certified that the people are, I believe they're certified and licensed maybe.
Yes, yeah.
So they have to be the actual people that are authorized to do the actual killing, and they do it in a way where they sever the spinal cord right? immediately. Yeah. Yeah, and so they don't feel pain after that, and but it's still gruesome. But
yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're gonna do it, that's probably the best way to do it. But again, it's not ideal in my mind. I think all animals should be able to live, but I like having friends, so I don't get militant about it, and I don't cancel people just because.
Yeah,
they don't
but in terms of canceling,
I
mean, there's been over the last maybe 10 years, 8 years, there've been a number of artists that have been slated to come to the Faroes. I mean, you mentioned Sea Shepherd in terms in relation to Tour. Sea Shepherd have done, and some other anti-whaling organizations have done a lot of lobbying where they just inundate these artists with the photos, and it doesn't take much to sort of scare someone away or to make someone want to just cancel the gig, and that's happened quite a number of times actually, and I think it's absurd. I mean, because I don't know how many whales we kill every year. It goes up and down, maybe a couple hundred. A round number, but I mean, when usually these bands maybe they come to the Faroes and then they play a gig in Denmark. How many millions of pigs and chickens and cattle are killed in Denmark every year, or in the UK, or in Germany, and so on, and so on, so on.
America,
but
yeah,
exactly. Like, why are you canceling us? Like, is it because we're small and insignificant? Is it because sometimes it's not actual racism, but I think like if we maybe had another skin color, people wouldn't be so angry. I don't know. That's a whole other bag of, but you know what I mean. Like people don't sort of cancel Canada for having First Nation people who kill whales, but I think it's hypocritical. It doesn't make sense.
It's very hypocritical. Yeah, it's like you can't point the finger at the Faroes when you yourself are killing hundreds of thousands of cows and pigs and chickens and everything else. Every other type of animal. So it's either don't kill anything and you have a right to say something, or just don't say anything at all. I don't know. It's always going to be a controversial subject.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But you definitely have a point, and that's why, like I said, that's why I bring it up, because it is worth talking about, and especially the hypocrisy behind it. Again, I'm going to reiterate, I don't agree with it, but if you're going to point it out, then you can't have killing on your own. You can't have blood on your own hands if you're going to point out.
Exactly. I mean, if you're against the killing of animals, you're against the killing of all animals. And in terms of, so we can kill maybe 1,000 whales, let's say, but how many millions of animals aren't killed everywhere else? Yeah. And no one cancels their gig there. That seems... Exactly.
So, anyways, moving on from that. With that being said, we don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but... obviously, we've talked about you're a musician, guitar player. This guitar is your main instrument, and I have to tell you, I've probably mentioned this to you before. You were hands down, literally one of my favorite guitar players. Every project you're a part of, Yeah, no problem. Every project that you're a part of, the best part of it is your guitar playing. You know, you just have this style that's all your own. Really, you know, I don't think you sound like anyone else, and you just kind of have developed your own style, and it's really unique, and I love it. I love it. You know, from all your stuff with Bracket, and you did one song, I believe, with the band I Am from the Faroes.
Yes.
So, which is a great song, great guitar solo in that as well. So,
yeah, thank you, man.
So
I mean, coming from someone who's toured with all sorts of musicians, many of my favorite ones as well. I mean, that means a lot. You saying so?
Yeah. Well, I meant every word of it. So, it to me, I've always found it, you know, interesting. You know, coming from such a small country, you wouldn't think that music would be a big part of the lives of a lot of people in the Faroes. You know, you'd think something like agriculture or whatever, whale killing would be like the main profession. You know, and like you said, it's the whale killing is not a profession there. No. It's not there's no industry behind it. So, but anyway, I'm always amazed at how many musicians are actually in the Faroes. You know, there's a lot of people there that are playing music. You know, there's even a big festival there, and they bring in bands from
several
all over
big
Europe,
festivals,
and one of them is put on by your cousin John, the G Festival.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really really interesting. So how did that? How did you come into playing guitar? Like, you know, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I come from a very musical family. You know, I have 4 brothers, and they're all musicians in some way. My dad was a musician. He played a little bit, but he also he was very involved in church, and you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very small language spoken by very few people. So translation of you know, literature and songs, hymns, and so on is quite a big thing. And my dad has translated hundreds of songs. You know, Amazing Grace, the Faroese translation, he did that, and many others. So music has always been a thing in my family, but I think it's just part of the Faroese culture, as you sort of allude to. I think I don't know why, but you know, it's a small community. It's in the middle of nowhere. The weather is terrible. It's dark, you know, in the winter. And I think, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, nowadays there's lots of entertainment. We have, you know, Netflix and all that. That's fine. So you can distract yourself. But in the olden days, I mean, people would get together and sing. And for occasions, they would sing, like, you know, holidays and church, obviously. And, you know, when people would go, or men would go row out in their little tiny boats to go fishing, they would always sing a hymn going out and coming back in. You know, it's such an integrated part of the culture, and still is. I mean, I went to a wedding a couple of years ago with, you know, my wife's cousin was getting married, and my wife has a sister and a brother from Iceland, and they were talking about there's so many songs. You know, it's such a big thing for weddings. There's always songs, and I don't mean performances. I mean, you know, singing together and people write songs for the wedding. You know, it's very, very common, all that sort of stuff.
And it's like a community type sing along at the wedding.
Yeah. So and you, like, every wedding has like a little booklet with maybe 20, 25 songs, and you have a couple of musicians that go up and you know, like every 20 minutes, let's sing a song. You know,
that sounds cool.
Yeah, and I apparently people don't do that everywhere else. But it's something
I've never heard of it.
No, there's a for the national holiday, for example, you know, which is called Ólavsøka, which means Saint Olaf's wake, like the night before the when Saint Olaf was killed 1,000 years ago. Anyways, but
Yeah.
that's the
the
national
Battle
holiday.
of Stiklestad.
That's exactly. Yes. At midnight, there's this huge gathering of people, like several thousands of people that come together to sing. And one of the most, beloved songs is called, what's it called? Of course, I forgot it now, but. But it's Faroese, like words by a really famous Faroese poet, set to one of the melodies that Willie Nelson did. I don't
Okay.
know the English title. I should look it up, but someone sent him like a recording of 10,000 people singing, this song, and apparently he was kind of impressed by it, but it's
Wow.
yeah. So anyways, but some examples of just how integrated music is in the Faroese culture. And I think I don't know if it's the same in the States, but I think bands aren't quite the thing anymore as they used to be. Most people just jam with their laptop these days. So and maybe it's not the same over there, and especially when you live in a place like Nashville, where there's so much music. But projects pop up all the time here. And obviously bands. There's just something about, I don't know. We really like to express ourselves with music, and that's how I got into it. As I said earlier, I got into rock and roll, heavy metal. My parents didn't want me listening to any secular stuff, so I started out first couple of years only listening to Christian music. Got older and branched out eventually, but it just meant so much to me. Sort of, just sitting in your bedroom with your practice amp, sort of dreaming that you're standing on a stage somewhere and just practicing for hours and hours. And you develop some sort of style, as you say. I mean, it's difficult to have a perspective on yourself, I think. I don't know if I don't think I have a unique style when I play, but I mean I appreciate you saying so. Some
I
sort
totally
of
think
voice.
you do.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
But I think those moments, late nights, just sitting there playing and playing and playing, imagining that you're a big rock star and all that sort of stuff.
You were
drives you.
imagining that you were playing in a bar for 5 people in the United States somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
That dream came true for you.
20% of the audience was the manager. Yeah.
Right.
It did come through. Yeah, but I mean, I remember hearing about the Cornerstone Festival you mentioned earlier. That's doesn't exist anymore. But I remember reading about it, talking to a friend. Well, man, we should go sometime. You listen to Tourniquet and Mortification, all these bands that I really loved. And maybe 10 years, 15 years. I don't know how long it was, but maybe 10 years later, there I was. Talking to Pastor Bob and what was the bassist in Barren Cross?
Jim Laverty.
Jim Laverty, exactly. Yeah. We said hello
Mm-hmm.
to him. Yeah, all these guys, and obviously all the new bands that were cool at the time, Under Oath, and yeah, that was cool. The Chariot, they were insane.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I saw them once later, I think, in Aberdeen when I studied there, in this just a small club. I mean, they played the main stage. I think during the day wasn't a very good time to play. But I saw them in a club in Aberdeen. They were insane. I mean, the bassist was literally hanging from the ceiling. Very, very cool band.
Yeah, I remember seeing them play quite a few times. I think they're actually doing. They're doing another little tour coming up.
Oh, really?
If I'm not mistaken, but
okay, I thought they called it
another.
quits a couple of years ago, and the singer guy was doing is it called 68 or something, or the 60 something? Just like a guitar and drums and vocal thing. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I have to look that up. I'm not sure if that. I want to say they are doing a small little thing in Texas coming up, but
okay,
I could be wrong. Wrong. I'm so far removed from that scene these days that I don't really keep
yeah.
up with it.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I'm in some Facebook groups with like Christian metal, and I'm far removed from it as well. I mean, I'm there for the
Yeah.
nostalgia, and I think
Right.
it's mostly dead these days. Wouldn't you say so? I mean, Solid State is
Yeah,
is
yeah.
still
I mean,
around,
there's
but
some bands that are still doing it, but yeah, it's not really what it used to be. So
not at
it's,
all.
yeah,
No,
I wouldn't say it's dead, but it's not as big as it was.
no,
You know,
no.
by any
And
means, by any
And
means.
that's how it goes. I mean, Christian ska isn't big either. I mean, or
Well, then
yeah.
I don't think that was ever big. Well, it was. No, it
Well, I
was
mean, the
for a
late
little bit in the
'90s was a
90s,
good
but
time for Christian ska. But I mean,
yeah,
these things come and go, and maybe for me, I think the Cornerstone Festival maybe symbolizes it a little bit. Like it was what it was, and then it went away because there wasn't much of a market for it. And
yeah, yeah.
but some of us old timers still go maybe 3 times a year and put on like a Believer record or a
Right.
Living Sacrifice, something like that.
Yeah.
But
They're still doing stuff, by the way. Living
okay.
Sacrifice.
Mm,
Every once in a while, they're not like doing shows regularly, but they'll do like one, maybe 2 shows a year. They
yeah.
just did a festival down in Alabama
Okay.
a couple months ago called Furnace Fest, and
I've heard that name
they,
before. Yeah.
yeah, they played a bunch of old like 90s, punk and metal and rock bands. I believe Stavesacre played as well.
Okay.
Which those guys are good friends of mine, and
Mm-hmm.
quite a few bands play. I was actually out on the road myself, so I wasn't able to go down there and see the show, but I would have loved to have seen that. So it's kind of like a reunion show for a lot of the bands that were playing. They hadn't
that's
played
cool.
in forever. So, but yeah, again, I'm just so far removed. But I know Living Sacrifice is doing some stuff every once in a while. I'm still in touch with Bruce, and
Okay. But wasn't there like
just,
a 25-year anniversary on Reborn? Or am I way off? Like, didn't come out in '98 or something? Or
I don't.
I don't quite remember. What doesn't make it 25? But I mean,
Yeah, that makes it.
yeah. Don't get me to do any
24.
math here. But but it's ages ago. But it's such a good record. And I remember how controversial it was when they stopped being proper metal and all that sort of stuff. Who cares? It's good music.
I was just messaging with Bruce today. He's gonna.
Oh, really?
We're gonna try and hook him up to be a guest on an upcoming episode.
Oh,
so,
nice, very cool.
Yeah, keep your eyes
All
open
your cool
for
friends,
that,
and then there's me.
Bruce Fitz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what have you been up to musically lately? I know you don't really have a main band that you're with anymore, but you're obviously still playing and keeping your chops up. I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean. My older brother Jakob is I've told you this, but he's in Nashville. He's been there a ton of times. I think he got married in Nashville actually. His wife and him. His wife is Faroese, but he's a professional musician, a producer, and he told me, Arnie, just wait until the kids are grown. You'll have plenty of time and money to get back into music then. Exactly. So I mean, I have a full-time job. I have lots of things going on. So music is not what playing music is not what I spend most of my time doing. But I do, as you say, I do get involved in stuff, regularly, different projects. People call me, say, "Can you come play here?" And I come up with some stuff on my own as well, like little projects and so on. But I mean, I was thinking about this interview. It's interesting because you have. I don't know all the guests that you have lined up, but I know that you have a lot of good friends who are active professional musicians, and I don't know. I sort of dipped my toes in it, and you were with me when I did. And at one point, I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this, it's going to take a lot of commitment, and there are no certainties. I mean, there are many musicians that never make it. They never even, live in poverty, really, even though they do what they love. And I was married, or at least I was going to be married when I got married a year after our tour in the States, and I was thinking, well, I mean, there's so much else I could do, and I'd love to
Yeah.
do this,
Yeah.
but if I'm going to do it, I have to do it properly, and I don't think I'm ready to make that commitment. And
Yeah.
I don't think
And
I'm particularly sad about that. Even though when
yeah.
we're talking about this, sort of, it's a bit like talking about the girlfriend that got away. You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine if, how cool would it be, like if I went on the road every year and did albums, and that'd be awesome. I mean, that'd be really great. But
Yeah.
it didn't
But at the
happen,
same
and it's fine. You know?
yeah. At the same time, you look at the flip side of that. Yeah, it would be cool to have that, but there's so many things that you wouldn't have that you do currently have.
Yeah.
You have
Mhm.
a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful kids.
Yeah.
If you were traveling all the time touring, you wouldn't be home for your kids, and they wouldn't
No.
know who you are, and nobody
Mhm.
wants that.
Yeah, I
So
think there are
you made
pros and
I
cons
think you made a
to every
exactly.
yeah.
You made a fair trade.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just life as well, right? When you go through one door, you're sort of ignoring all the other ones that you could have gone through, and
Exactly.
the arrow of time only travels in one direction, and that's
True.
just how it works. And there's, obviously it's a lot of fun to dream about or fantasize, what could it have
Yeah.
been, and how much fun I'm sure it would have been amazing, in lots
Yeah.
of ways. But I love my life. I'm
Yeah.
living a great life.
Yeah,
You
you
know.
have a great life.
Hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned the word commitment before. When it comes to doing this, and that's pretty much the key word. Is it does take a really serious lifetime commitment to really get to the point where you're at the top of your game as a musician. Even then, you can put all the commitment in, and it's kind of a luck of the draw.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no guarantees. There's no
No,
guarantees
not
in
at
it.
all.
So,
It's very true.
so
But
the
yeah,
music business is a hard road to travel.
it is, and
Yeah.
you get the impression that there are a lot of sort of dishonest players as well. I mean, it's very easy to get ripped off and all those sorts of things. I don't know, but I think, as I said earlier, when I think back on that tour, that time in my life, going to the studio, playing gigs, writing songs, all that sort of stuff. That's a good time in my life.
Yeah.
I look back on it fondly. I'm really really happy about what happened, what I did. But I'm also happy about sort of leaving it behind, kind of, or at
Yeah.
least, doing it in a different way, playing music.
Yeah, and you just look on it as it was a chapter of your life,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
you're free to make other more beautiful chapters, and
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
I feel honored that I got to play a small part in that
Mm.
chapter with you guys, and yeah, I look back on it fondly as well.
Yeah.
Overall, we had a good time, like you said. There
Yeah,
was some
definitely.
days where we were stressed out and all that, but that
Yeah.
just goes with the territory.
course,
That's bound
yeah,
to happen.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean,
But
a friendship came out of it.
yeah,
That's,
yeah. I,
you
I
know.
consider you one of my best friends, and
Mm.
we go through times where we don't really talk a lot, but that's because we live on opposite sides of the world.
Yeah.
But we're able to. I was just talking about the same thing with Christopher Stiana, who was one of my
Mm.
previous guests. He lives in Denmark, and we're the same way.
Yeah.
We go through periods where we don't talk a lot, and then we'll connect online, and then it's just like no time has passed. So.
Yeah.
And those are really good friendships to have. They stand a test of time, and
Yeah.
they turn into lifelong friendships. So
Mm.
if we can say anything came out of that time, would be our friendship.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
value our friendship, and I appreciate you definitely for being my friend. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same. I think, I mean, you can have a lot of thoughts about life, but I think those are some of the really, really valuable things that you get out of just doing stuff. I mean, and I remember, obviously, I don't keep up with these people. Some of them became our friends on MySpace, But
yeah,
but I remember, like hanging out with people. Do you remember that guy? Didn't we play Baltimore? And there was this young guy who was just freaking out by the guitar playing or about the guitar playing, and I often think about him, like, where is he in his life? And then we went to someone's house we played, what's a game called Little Big Planet or something, and all these people that you sort of just meet for a day,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like they give you some value, you give them some value, hopefully, and you're on your way and you're enriched by it. I think it's really meaningful.
They make a lasting impression on you, So
Yeah.
yeah, so well, I'm glad that we've developed a friendship through all this, and been friends for so many years. I've gotten the opportunity to meet your family and your 3 amazing children and your wife, and I've told you this already. I was bummed I wasn't able to go out there for the wedding, but I eventually made it, and I felt like when I met Malin, your wife, I felt like I have known her for years, online, but it was cool to finally meet her in person.
Yeah, definitely.
And to meet your mom, who lives 200 feet from you, or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just right down the road. And your brother, you mentioned your 4 brothers. One of your younger brothers, Pat, was in a band called Boys in the Band, and they were amazing. And I got the opportunity to see them at South by Southwest in Texas quite a few years ago. That was like 14 years ago. 2008, I believe.
Yeah,
it was.
I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool. When you reflect back upon, it's really true. Life really does go by in the blink of an eye, and it's just it's so crazy when you think about how much time has already passed since we've known each other. And I think that's what life's all about, is friendships and making memories, and
definitely,
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. Connecting with people, long conversations, just sort of, meeting people properly, not just on a surface level, but going deeper. I think that, that's really what's valuable, I think, when it comes to it.
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything you want to add as we wrap this episode up? Anything you looking forward to this year, music related or not?
Well,
anything
I'm looking forward to hopefully COVID being over whenever that happens. I don't know.
I think we all are.
Yeah. Everyone's really, really, really tired. Musically, I don't know. I've got some pretty mellow stuff lined up, or at least I'm talking to some of my musician friends about doing some like hymn stuff for church.
Yeah.
Okay. And hopefully next summer, I've been in this worship project where there's a huge sort of youth conference in Germany called Teen Street. I think it's like 4,000 or 5,000 people. And we became the official worship band, like a couple of Faroese people. But with COVID, we haven't been able to actually go there. So hopefully we will this summer, hopefully.
I know that in the past, pre-COVID and everything, that you've done a lot of speaking at conferences and whatnot. Is there any plans for that to start back up again once COVID is kind of not a thing?
Most of that stuff is just in just locally.
Okay.
I think the COVID policies are getting a bit more relaxed here, at least. The Omicron variant doesn't seem to be quite as dangerous. It spreads quite a bit quicker, but it doesn't put as many people in the hospital.
Exactly.
So they're relaxing some of the restrictions. So that's kind of starting up again. I think we went to church today for the first time in a couple of weeks. Stuff like that. So, but most of it is just local. I'm gonna plans to go anywhere else really. Well, I'm actually hopefully heading to Norway in a month, but it's just for a couple of meetings. Okay. So we'll see what happens.
Norway is my favorite country. I'm sure
I've
mentioned
going to Oslo
many times. Yeah. I feel like whenever and Lena, my wife, she's half Norwegian. Her mom's actually from Oslo originally.
Yeah.
And we both just whenever we land at the airport in Oslo, we just feel like we're home.
Yeah.
It just feels like home to us. Same thing with Copenhagen. I've spent a lot of time in Copenhagen,
Yeah.
or Kubenhavn, as you say in Danish.
København,
Um,
yeah.
Kubenhavn. So yeah, I definitely feel at home. I know that airport like the back of my hand.
It's a
Copenhagen.
great airport, actually.
It is. It's
You've
my
been
favorite airport in the world.
Yeah, okay.
It really is.
Because
It's my favorite airport.
yeah, I haven't been to that many airports, but I think in terms of just layout, design, and just how easy it
Yeah.
is to get around, I think
Well,
it's up
that
there.
one in Schiphol Airport in
Okay.
Amsterdam is a cool airport.
All
too,
right.
so.
Did we fly through there? Do you remember that? When we
I don't
came
know.
over? No, we went to Amsterdam, from Copenhagen to Amsterdam and then to Detroit.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that. So.
I don't know how many airports there are in Amsterdam, but it was quite similar, but it felt a lot bigger than Copenhagen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Because
it's
I
definitely cool. The
forgot
one I'm talking
something
about.
on the plane. I had to run all the way back. I don't remember
Oh,
quite
wow.
like my passport or something. So I
Oh,
had
no.
to get it, but I had to run like 10 minutes straight
I
to get
vaguely
it.
remember something about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
So yeah, me and Lena are gonna have to go pay a visit. Are you guys open to
Yeah.
foreign visitors yet? Or
Yes.
Like, okay, so there's no restrictions on that.
No, I think you have to go
Obviously, you have to be
test yourself at the
vaccinated or
border.
something.
Yeah. Well, not
Yeah.
vaccinated, but as long as you can present a negative test, I think. As far as I
Okay.
know, I'm not quite sure, but
We thought about going to Iceland for Christmas this year.
oh really?
Um,
Wow, that'd be cool.
So yeah, Lena, it's crazy. Lena spent most of her childhoods in Norway,
Mhm.
and speaking and understanding Norwegian
Yeah.
growing up, but she's never seen the Northern Lights. So which I
Really?
think is crazy because
We had them here
she
just a
spent
couple
so much
days
time in
ago.
Norway.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah.
So yeah, she wants to go to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, and it's
Yeah.
a cool place to be at Christmas time anyway. So
Mhm.
maybe we'll try and make a combined trip, go to Iceland and then stop in
That'd
the
be cool.
Faroes.
That'd
And,
be very cool. Yeah.
but if we don't make it out this year, we definitely got to come out sometime in the next couple of years or so.
I mean, anytime you want to come this way, that our arms and our doors are open. I mean, that'd be great.
Literally,
to
you don't
see.
lock the door.
No, that's true. Why would you? I mean,
Yeah, I know. I just find that so crazy. It's like I live in a place where it's like it is imperative that you lock the door when you leave.
yeah.
So Arnie, before we end this episode, first of all, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to be with me today. It's always a pleasure to have you and to speak with you, I should say.
Yeah.
But before we go, let me ask you a couple questions, and this is something I want to ask all my guests. Question one is, what is music to you? And question two, who are some new bands that you've been listening to? Like, what music is moving you lately? Who should we check out? Who would you recommend?
Yeah. Well, I mean, music means a whole lot to me. It's one of those things that I think about this quite often, actually. It's one of the sort of persistent sources of just happiness and well-being and meaning for me. I love discovering new bands, and I love going back and listening to the stuff that I used to listen when I was younger. Sort of,
Yeah.
nostalgic sort of thing. I think music is just such a, I don't know, it's a cliche to call it a universal language, but it's such a powerful experience to hear
It is.
like your sentiment or something you have experienced and learned, something deep being formulated by someone else who is so much better at saying it than you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, the power of music is very strong.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so good. And also, I mean, listening to music live is just an incredible experience. Just sort of losing yourself in a performance and playing as well. I mean, most people don't experience that, but that's something that I also just love so much. So for me, I mean, music means a lot. It's one of the most important things in my life. Something that's it's just such a positive thing. Such a reliably positive thing. Whenever I'm feeling down, I can go to it. If I'm, whatever mood I'm in, I can always put on some music to. Well, I mean, I want to say to make it even better. That sounds a bit silly, but there's always music that can complement it.
Yeah, Yeah, for sure.
And in terms of artists, did you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna lead into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I still listen to metal. That's kind of what I listen to.
As you should.
Yes. But obviously, I there's no genre of music that I don't like. I don't think so, at least. I think there's good music of in any genre. Although sometimes you have to dig a bit deeper than in some other places. But I think one band that I've been obsessed with last couple of days is called Haunted Shores. It's two of the guitarists from Periphery. They have a side project, and they're coming out with an album in February or March, I think, and they just released a song, and it's crazy. It's incredibly fast and sort of brutal instrumental stuff that I really, really, really like. I've also been listening to Loathe quite a lot. Do you know them? The British sort of they're kind of like they've got Deftones kind of under they're quite similar to them. Some of the melodies and the sort of the atmospheric stuff, but it's got some progressive stuff in there as well. Very heavy, very, very good. They just released the new song a couple of weeks ago. And there's a Danish band that I don't know if you know them. They're called Beast. So Baeest. Sort of the Danish word for beast. And they're an old school sort of death metal band, like mid-90s, really groovy death metal. They played the G Festival 2 years ago, I think, here in the Faroes. They're amazing. They just released an album last year, and it's really, really, really good. And I also want to just one more band. Like I could go on, but there's a British. I think they're British. A band called Green Lung, sort of doom, sort of doomy glam rock almost. But they've got this sort of pagan vibe going as well. Sort of pagan environmental something or other. It's super cool. Lots of harmonies and an organ in the back and very good riffs. I like that. Yeah, sort of mellow Mastodon with maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe Ghost or The Darkness or someone doing the vocal production. It's super, super good, actually.
I'll definitely have to check that out. I'm a big fan of Ghost. I'm actually going to be seeing them next month.
Starting. I'm jealous. I love Ghost.
Me too. They're doing a U.S. tour, a co-headlining tour with Volbeat from Denmark, so maybe go check that out.
You're going to have a good time then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've seen both of those bands quite a few times, so it'll be good. But, one band I think you might like, I know that back in the day you were a big fan of the band Tourniquet.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you know this, but so Gary Lanier, Guy Ritter, Eric Mendez have formed a new band called Flood.
Yes,
I've
heard.
You've heard of it.
One of the songs. And with
David,
the Extol drummer,
David
right?
Husvik from Extol, yes. Yeah, he's playing drums on that. I think they've only released one single, and from what I've heard, it's pretty good. I don't know who's playing bass for them though, but
no.
So I've worked with all those guys, and David's a good friend of mine, and but yeah, I'm interested to see what they're gonna do in the future. I think they're releasing a new album or a whole album.
you should maybe get some of them on the podcast.
I'm definitely gonna reach out to them and see if they want to be a guest. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I think all the time we have for today. Thanks again so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. We'll have to do an update sometime in the next year or so, and definitely I gotta stop and visit you in the Faroes whenever I get a chance. So.
Yeah, Ken, I mean, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I feel honored to be on the podcast. To be counted among all your interesting friends. That's an honor. Maybe not the friend that draws the most audience to your podcast, but maybe I can to the people that are listening that maybe hopefully this was interesting, edifying in some way, and I mean you know this, but you if you come this way, I'm here with open arms, open doors. You're always welcome.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and the same goes for you. Anytime you want to come to Nashville, you got a place to stay here, and I'd love to show you around, and you would bring your whole family, and we'll have a good time.
Yeah.
So.
It's that's on the, well, it's not on the bucket list. It's something that I really want to do, and not just once before I die, but hopefully more times than that. Hopefully, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And Nashville is in my, because I know you there, but I know some other people as well that I want to see. So so it's definitely there.
Yeah, we've talked
and I
about
just
that.
love from our time. I just love the southern states. I thought that was there's something
it's
something
cool
about
living in the
that.
South.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different breed of people down here in the South. So
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Anyway, this has been another episode of Taking Notes with Ken. I'm your host, Ken Sheehan. Our guest today has been Arni Zachariassen from the Faroe Islands.
Yes.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Cheers.